Alright, tonight's homework is going to be about introductions. By the end of this video, you will understand the elements of an introduction, you'll see examples of introductions, and even write some practice hooks for your own essay. Just to review, remember to look for the pencil so that you know where you should stop and take notes. Use the rule of 5 and pause as often as you need to. So we want to first talk about the elements of an introduction. What is an introduction? Well, it's the first paragraph in an essay, and the things that it has, it should grab the reader's attention, it should explain or set up the topic, and it should present the thesis statement. So let's look at each of those things individually. We have the hook, we're going to be narrowing the focus, and talking about the thesis. So the hook is the very beginning of your introductory paragraph. It should grab the reader's attention, and it introduces the reader to your topic. To do this is usually just a couple of sentences, often just one, and you can use a quote, you can use an anecdote, which is a very short story, maybe 2-3 sentences at the longest. You can also start with a fact or a statistic, a general statement, or you can start with a question. We're going to take 3 of these and look at some examples of what a hook would look like. So let's look at using a quote as a hook. If I'm going to do my essay about zombies being excellent pets, I might start with a quote like this. George A. Romero once said that I expect a zombie to show up on Sesame Street soon, teaching kids to count. And I'm going to be able to tie that into the introduction and then go into the thesis. Second example, you can use a statistic or a fact. While many people have pets, very few have pet zombies. And that would get people thinking about the topic, but you don't necessarily know exactly what the thesis will be, but it will lead up to the thesis. Finally, the third example, using a question. If I could ask a question like this, how many people would love a pet that did more than play fetch and get hair all over? And that kind of introduces, kind of gets the reader thinking about what the topic is and gets them ready to hear the thesis later on. The next part of an introduction is where you want to narrow the focus. So if the hook kind of gives the broad or general topic, this part of the introduction really explains or sets up the topic more specifically. It narrows it. It's going to give the reader any helpful or necessary information they need to know before getting to the thesis statement. You can kind of think of it as a say more to the hook. So once you've had the hook, what are you going to say in addition to that to get you ready to see the thesis or the main point of your essay? Let's look at some examples. Let's go back to our quote example. Here's the quote. I could add some, narrow the focus by adding something like this. While that may seem a little far-fetched, speaking of zombies being in on Sesame Street, while that may seem a little far-fetched, rather than scare everyone to death with the thought of a zombie apocalypse, zombies can become more helpful to our society. In fact, like a dog or any other pet, they can become man's best friend. So that information kind of helps narrow it, gets closer to being ready to actually state the thesis statement. Here's another example. If we take the statistic that I used, we can add this. Now, some people might reject the idea that zombies could be helpful because of the supposed zombie apocalypse. However, most people underestimate the positive effect zombies can have on our society as pets. So notice how we go from the general statement at the beginning, the hook, and we're slowly getting closer to talking about zombies as pets. Third example, talking about having a pet that does more than play fetch and get hair all over. We can add this information to help narrow it and get ready for the thesis statement. Sure, pets like dogs, cats, or fish have their place, but they can't match the abilities and the helpfulness of the ultimate pet, zombies. It's a myth that people need to worry about zombies taking over the world. That leads up and would give the reader the reader ready for the thesis statement. And that's what comes last in your introduction. Let's look at how these introductions all work together when you add the thesis statement. Well, first of all, let's review that a thesis is that one sentence that clearly states the main point of the essay. It includes your topic plus the opinion or the main point that you're going to make about that topic. Okay, let's look at the examples. So we had the Sesame Street quote about zombies teaching kids to count. We added some background information about how zombies can be helpful. In fact, like a dog or any other pet, they can become man's best friend. And then we add the surprising truth is that zombies make excellent pets. So that kind of slowly gets in, and you have all three parts there to the introduction. Going from the hook, that background, narrowing the focus, and then ending in the thesis statement. All right, this next example about it starts with the fact or the statistic. We added that information about how people underestimate the positive effect zombies can have on our society as pets. And then we add, in reality, zombies make very useful pets. Notice that it's a little bit different from the last thesis statement because I want it to fit with the flow of this particular introduction. All right, third example. Here I started with a question. If you want a pet that does more than play fetch and get hair all over, I added this information that kind of introduces the idea that it's a myth that people need to worry about zombies taking over the world. And then we add the thesis, with the threat of zombie apocalypse out of the way, zombies really do make excellent pets. And that's our third example. Now, sometimes it's helpful to actually see things in a different way. So I have a short mini video here for you to watch that goes over some of these same ideas, but with a different focus and a different setup. You will need to take notes on this video, and so review the guided notes so you know what to look for, but understand that you're not going to see a pencil in this video because I didn't create it. And so you're going to have to pay attention and look for the things that you're supposed to write down. So let's check it out.
Hello everyone, this is Michelle, and welcome to this brief review of the introductory paragraph. Your introduction is your first chance to establish credibility with the reader, and one rarely gets a second chance to make a first impression. To be effective, your introductory paragraph must do three things. First, an introduction should grab the reader's attention. Second, the introduction should narrow the reader's focus and provide a connection to the last and most important part, your thesis, which must be presented as the central or controlling idea. A common way to construct your introduction is by using the funnel approach. At the beginning, you grab the reader's attention, showing that you, the writer, will be in control. In the middle portion of the funnel, you gradually narrow the reader's focus in preparation for the thesis, which is stated at the end or tip of the funnel. Let's take a closer look at each part. Generally, the first sentence of the introduction grabs the reader's attention and introduces the topic in a way that communicates its importance. You can accomplish this by using a surprising statistic, asking the reader a question, providing a strong quote, or historical background. Why go to so much trouble in the introduction? The introduction is where you, the writer, will either come across as someone who is in command of the topic or someone who is lacking the confidence or knowledge. The middle of the introduction provides any background information necessary to prepare the reader for the thesis. The main purpose of this section is to connect the intro's opening with the thesis. Without this connection, the thesis can come as a surprise to the reader who has not been adequately prepared for it. At the tip of the funnel comes the thesis statement. This is when the reader becomes fully aware of your argument or major point. The two main features of the thesis are, first, it addresses your assignment in a direct way, even to the point of repeating key words of the assignment directions. Second, the thesis presents your point of view or slant on the topic. The thesis is the core of your writing, around which all of the other parts revolve, and it must be showcased here in your introduction. There are three techniques usually frowned upon when writing an introduction. First, avoid being vague or hesitant, which immediately raises readers' doubts. Using first person is also a no-no, unless the assignment requires it. And finally, avoid the obvious announcement statements such as, "This paper will discuss," as a way to begin or end your introduction. Let's take a quick look at an effective introduction that combines these elements. As humans celebrate the new year, most are unaware that nearly 2/3 of polar bears will likely vanish by 2013 because of global warming. As you can see, it begins with a startling statistic that underscores the topic's importance. Next, with polar ice melting at alarming rates, bears are starving and drowning as scientists search for ways to prevent their extinction. This sentence provides a logical connection or bridge between the opening and the all-important thesis, which is to come. And finally, for polar bears to survive, humans must reduce global warming by conserving energy and reducing greenhouse gases, or soon it will be us facing extinction. Here is the thesis, which states a clear point of view that will be developed in the body.
Okay, now you need to go ahead and pause the video and practice writing some hooks for your current essay. You can go back and look at the examples that I've given. You can check your notes. But this is the essay that you are doing currently. For right now, that is your Genius Hour essay. All right, you've finished watching. We're done. The last steps is that you need to make sure you write your summary on your note page as well as your hot question. And then when your notes are complete, make sure that you get them submitted to Schoology. And if you did use a paper copy, make sure you take a really clear picture that's completely in focus, that will be easy for me to read on my computer. Load it into Notability, crop it if you need to cut out any extra things that aren't necessary, and make sure the picture is large enough to fill the page before submitting it. All right, that's all, folks.